week in the cool stuff, I was hanging with Mix Blouse, an artist that's breaking barriers everywhere. The setting, Braam at Kitchener's, where they first debuted. We spoke about how the latest track, Isipukupuku, came about.
I was in Cape Town, and on a random day I made plans to go meet up with one of my producers in studio. And it so happened that Mshindi, who comes from a duo called Stiff Bop, was in town as well, and he was also going to be working with my producer Tor. So we all met up in studio, and I mean, I guess everything else is history.
And of course, I mean, Isipukupuku is loosely translated from Zulu to English as the idiot.
Yeah.
What is it that you're working with? What is the play on words here?
So initially the track, because the beat was just like so festive to me, so I wanted to make a party track, but I'm so inclined to thinking about social issues that instead of just talking about the party, I started talking about the things that I see happening at the party. And one of those things is just the level of disrespect that female and queer bodies experience in the party space. So the idiot sort of became, you know, whoever is perpetrating that kind of abusive behavior in those spaces. But I also kind of touch on politics. I speak about Jacob Zuma, I speak about Cyril Ramaphosa and Marikana. The political message there is that, you know, when our leaders abuse resources or cause pain, inflict pain in any way, that's a form of dispossession, in the same way that these bodies are becoming dispossessed.
Now, of course, I mean, you are intensely political. That's how I got to know you.
Yeah.
If you were to put a label to what it is that you're doing, what would it be?
For me, labeling it would be taking away from the nuances of it. I'm just making music, I'm just expressing, and I think we need to start as people getting to that place where we feel less of an inclination towards labeling things. And
I love what you're saying because, of course, I mean, if one looks at the music industry, people are very genre specific. If one looks at sexual politics, queer politics, body politics, people like binary answers to things. You defy genres. Is this the way in which you think people should be allowed to express themselves?
You know, previously the media space has been controlled by these conglomerates whereby, you know, certain views can't get to the public. And what social media has done is sort of remind us, hold on, there are voices that have been silenced all along.
I was really excited when I saw you posting online a kind of sound check of a performance in Berlin. And of course, I mean, you, a kid who grew up in KwaZulu-Natal, how did you end up in Berlin?
The internet has really just, for me as an artist, it's opened up my world so much. When I put out my first sort of music, my first single online at the end of 2016, I had no idea that I would have people all over the world like talking about my music and being interested in me as an artist.
Talking about that, I mean, you were actually featured in a very well-known gay magazine called Out in America. Is that how the people in Berlin got to know about
100%.
you?
So they saw my profile online on this magazine's website, and they sort of sent me an email and they said, when are you going to be in Berlin? I'm like, I can't afford to go to Berlin. Like, you make a plan for me. And 2 months later, they actually did. And they brought me over to Berlin, and I sort of during that time got them to connect me with other people that I can sort of gig more around Berlin. And it was very interesting. I remember being in Leipzig, and you know, one of the songs that I performed there is called Can't Walk the Streets. And I actually wrote the lyrics to that song after the whole Karabo Mokoena saga. I was just so tired. It was also during that Men Are Trash time, just looking at how female and queer bodies are treated. You can't walk the streets and just be yourself. Like, you constantly being asked, cover up, do this, do that, and if you are femme identifying, man up, and all of that. So the song can't walk the streets without somebody saying something, you know, and just expressing that anger.
You don't separate your gender fluidity, your artistry, your music, your politics from each other. How do they infuse who you are as an artist?
I think, you know, the responsibility of the artist for me is to be a reflection of your time. And this is my time and my generation. I write about things that I experience. And, you know, it's impossible to not be a political body as a human being.
That, of course, the fantastic Mix Blouse, they're performing in Kitcheners, and of course we had a big laugh, Peter, about the inversion of that. I mean, Lord Kitchener, yeah, is you know, the ultimate kind of colonialist, and that is where they debuted. Peter, quickly wrap up. We're going to have a very big political week. Yeah. We saw an incredible attack from the EFF on Pravin Gordhan. Dan Moyani's disciplinary has gotten underway, and of course,
Tom Moyani, yeah.
Tom Moyani. Yeah. My apologies to Dan. And then, of course, Themba Maseko being bullied on the eve of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Let's start with Pravin Gordhan. What is behind that?
Well, I mean, Pravin Gordhan is absolutely central to the efforts by Cyril Ramaphosa to restore some sort of operational credibility to the government of South Africa. I mean, he is so experienced. He has no political ambition whatsoever. He doesn't even want really to be there in the first place. He's doing it simply because I think is a favor to Cyril. And we all owe Pravin Gordhan a lot. And the fact that the EFF is attacking him the way that it did in a statement last week, and I see, you know, we have Dali Mpofu is now defending Tom Moyani at his disciplinary, and in doing so is also attacking Pravin Gordhan. You know, it's joining up dots time again, and if Pravin Gordhan is trying to get things right, why would anybody want to stand in his way?
Talking about Tom Moyani, I mean, there's been this constant kind of fight between him and the president around the way in which these proceedings are going to happen. And of course, it's a tug of war. Dali Mpofu is involved. We've got two processes. The president has kind of held firm in many ways. And of course, he needs to do that. Who do you think is going to end up the winner?
Well, look, Moyani's got nowhere to go, I'm sure of that. But I mean, you know, I've been speaking a little bit to people who support and are allies of Cyril Ramaphosa, and they're also a little bit worried about where his head might be. You know, he's become a little less communicative than he used to be. And he's not listening, and people say that the advisors that he has around him, particularly legal advisors, are not all that strong. So he needs to take care to look after himself a bit better.
Well, all of that and more, of course. Thank you, Peter, as always, for being my sparring partner here. Well, now that you've had your fix, you, of course, have everything to go by. We'll see you again next Sunday.